Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Doing good and doing well. Unless there are any evil masterminds here in the room, I think this is something that we can all aspire to, making a positive impact in the world and enjoying some prosperity at the same time. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to try and illuminate a path to achieve just that. Very good. So I'm going to start with an example that I think is a great example of what I'm talking about, and it's an example in the footballing world. Lionel Messi, a footballing genius, arguably the greatest of all time, and unless you've been hiding under a very large rock, you've probably heard of this guy. He came to fame as a striker for Barcelona Football Club, and last year he won the World Cup for Argentina. And today his mind-bending brilliance is being deployed for FC Miami, where he is trying to take Major League Soccer to the mainstream. But what many people don't know about Lionel Messi is that he's come to soccer in a very untraditional way. His stature is that of 5'7", a very unconventional stature for a football player. And for the ladies in the room who may have heard of Cristiano Ronaldo, he's much more conventional at 6'2". But Lionel Messi was made at a place, an academy called La Masia, which Barcelona created in 1979, recognizing if they were to compete and win consistently in the highly competitive European soccer leagues, they couldn't just buy talent, they needed to build talent. And Lionel Messi is probably the most famous output of La Masia, which translated from Catalan means the farmhouse. And in many ways, business and soccer are very similar when it comes to talent. Great talent wins. Great talent wins in leagues and it wins in industry. And as I said before, we simply cannot buy our way to acquiring all the talent we need. We must think in the long term about developing strategies to create the talent that we need to compete consistently. As Steve mentioned, my name is Anthony Hughes, and my passion is to help people fulfill their potential. And the outlet for that passion today is a company that I founded about 8 years ago called Tech Elevator. And what we do is we take high potential individuals and we train them to become software developers, arguably the MVP of today's economy, in as little as 14 weeks. Since we founded the company 8 years ago, we've trained nearly 5,000 individuals, and those individuals have gone on to work at over 900 companies as highly productive technology workers who came from non-traditional backgrounds. I actually fell into this space. I was working in the world of nonprofits, in economic development, and overlapping a little bit with workforce development. And I was hired to build an entrepreneurial mentoring program in Cleveland, Ohio. My job was to find the most promising up-and-coming entrepreneurs and pair them with capital and mentors and coaches to help them fulfill their potential as entrepreneurs. And we were quite successful doing that, but when these companies went to scale, they simply could not find the technology talent that they needed to fuel their businesses, and many times faltered because of that. To quantify this, we founded the company in 2015, and it was a year where there were 8,000 software developer positions advertised in the whole of the region, and yet all of our four-year institutions had just 280 computer science degrees that were conferred that year. 280 versus 8,000. And to compound the problem, 50% of those individuals actually left the region. So we had 140 computer science grads to power the great renaissance of Cleveland, Ohio. And you can tell how that's going right now, because obviously we're all talking about Cleveland, Ohio and its renaissance. But it was wonderful work. It was incredibly gratifying work. And it really turned me on to the opportunity to think about how can we solve this problem in a different way. There were bright people throughout our communities that needed the opportunity, needed to be given the opportunity to fulfill their potential. And that was really the problem that I set out to solve when I founded Tech Elevator. So let me talk a little bit about that problem. And this slide, I think, provides a pretty good illustration. So, as I mentioned before, software developers are really the MVP of today's economy. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median salary for software developers is $110,000 a year, and it's climbing. Demand for these workers is growing at 5 times the national average. And the period that we went through of massive digitization through the pandemic only compounded the issue. And as you can see here, at the current pace that we're on, there is simply no way that the traditional systems that we have can actually support the needs of American industry. The output of the US's computer science programs is smaller than China, it's smaller than India, it's even smaller than Poland. And 80% of CEOs, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, have identified this as the single greatest challenge that they face in their businesses today. How do you go about finding talent where the traditional systems are not producing talent? The way you go about finding talent is to widen your aperture, to think more creatively about where great talent comes from. And if you consider the fact that less than 1% of Americans receive computer science degrees, if we are to compete as companies, as communities, and nationally on a global stage, we absolutely must have more Americans engaging in this kind of skilling and the opportunity to take this career path. And one of the things that's, I think, super interesting is a study that was done, has been cited by over 2,000 academic researchers, referenced in 75 industrial psychology publications, done by Schmidt and Hunter, who arguably have published some of the most influential research on valid talent selection methods to date. And what they found was it wasn't years of education, experience, academic success, or even a well-structured employment interview process that was the predictor of on-the-job performance. Of all of those things, aptitude trumped everything, which is great news for those of us who are struggling to find the talent. All of a sudden, it allows us to expand the talent pool. So I'm going to share with you a little challenge. Which figure here is least like the other 4? I'm going to give you a moment just to take a look at it and to have a think about it. It won't immediately come to you, but you'll start to get an idea. All right, I'm going to do a quick show of hands. Show of hands for A. Don't be shy. Show of hands for B. Show of hands for C. C is popular. All right. Anyone on the D's and E's? All right. C is in fact the correct answer. You're right. And you got there using logic and reasoning. And these are 2 attributes that are inherent in software developers. They are traits that some of us were born with abundance and others less so, right? Tech Elevator, the company that I founded, went about finding talent by broadening our aperture and starting first with aptitude. And this question here is part of an aptitude assessment that we developed in conjunction with a number of experts, some industrial psychologists, in order to help us identify the cognitive ability that aligns with success in the field of software development. And we have proctored this test tens of thousands of times. We have iterated it with the help of experts. We have validated it externally for non-bias. And it turns out this aptitude test is highly predictive of success in our program and, furthermore, regardless of race, gender, and critically importantly, prior education. right? The learned skills of problem solving are an advantage for many people, but we're able to identify problem solving capabilities without the trained and the learned skills. And what's really exciting is that having proctored this test so many times, consistently, whether it's within a company or within a general population, 30% of people have the cognitive ability to code. 30%, nearly a third of this room could have, had they been influenced, gone down the path of becoming a technologist, which is a lucrative and rewarding career today. And as I mentioned before, less than 1% of the output of our colleges graduate with computer science degrees. So when you think about the American workforce that has to compete with, I think there are, give or take, 180 million, 160 million Americans who are currently active in work, have to compete with over 600 million Chinese, 700 million Indians. We absolutely need all of us to be working in the workforce and applying our skills and our brilliance. And what this allows us to ask ourselves is, when we think about aptitude as that primary measure, when you come to the realization that cognitive ability is distributed evenly in the general population and in your incumbent workforce, the territory that you can fish for talent becomes exponentially larger. And when you're willing to acknowledge that college isn't any more a mark of candidate quality than it is an indicator of privilege, you're taking the first steps towards an epiphany that will give you a massive advantage in the war for talent. So when you're able to think creatively about talent, your pools significantly expand. And I'm going to give you an illustration of that by picking Americans between 25 and 35 working adults as an illustration. So there are 39 million adults in the US in this age range. And if I hire by computer science degree only, I have a total target of just 600,000 individuals, right? 600,000 individuals. And as I said before, computer science degrees aren't a function of ability. They are a function of opportunity and privilege. If I hire by aptitude alone, my target market will increase 21-fold to 12.4 million individuals in this age range who have the cognitive ability to code. And if, despite the evidence, I still require a college degree, whatever the subject, I still have a total target market of 3.8 million, 6 times the amount of that computer science degree as my starting point. So this hopefully allows us to look at this opportunity much more broadly, right? The reality is that there are smart people whose only barrier is skills, and many organizations, like my own organization, Tech Elevator, have proven consistently for the last 10 plus years that we can bridge that skills gap and produce high-performing employees from an incumbent workforce or externally going in. So I'd like to highlight just a few notable initiatives to hopefully give you guys some inspiration that is already being done in the economy. There are some in-house programs, so reskilling, sort of soup to nuts. These are companies that have their own instructors, their own curriculum, their own academies, their own learning management systems. And there are other organizations that say, hey, that's not our core competency. We're going to outsource that. We'll white label it. We'll work with other partners to be able to do this. And companies look at reskilling in a couple of different ways. They look at it from outside in. How can I source a particular group of individuals that I want to bring into my organization? Or from inside up. So to give you an illustration, JP Chase have a program they call Tech Connect. They will go to historically black colleges and universities where there is white-hot competition for computer science grads. I mean, literally white-hot. But what JP Chase do is they actually go to biology grads, and they go to chemistry grads, degrees that are just as hard to get as a computer science degree, require the same effort and same smarts, but are much easier to source. And they take those individuals and they skill them and they put them into their organization at the rate of hundreds a year. AutoZone looks to its stores and its warehouses to source talent who can give them insights into how to better run their business. You know, who better to help you design the digital products that will interact with your customers than those who have interacted with them in a physical world? Who better to help you with that warehousing system that you're building than somebody who has been on the other end of that product as well? Home Depot takes store-level associates. They move them into an academy called the Orange Method, and they have a great track record of retention because people who go to work at Home Depot know they can look internally to move up and on in that organization. Disney takes an approach to diversify their tech workforce, specifically looking for females through their Code Rosie program. So these are just a handful of examples that you can look to, trailblazers, if you will, that have gone ahead, who have really taken and embraced reskilling. The thing that I hear probably more often than anything when we're talking to individuals who are interested in reskilling is it's simply too expensive. I've heard about it, it's complicated, it's far too expensive. And so what I'd like to do is just walk you through a framework to think about reskilling as an investment. And these aren't my numbers, they belong to Josh Burson, who many people in this room will know. He's sort of like the Taylor Swift of HR as far as I can work out. But the idea is to not look at reskilling in a vacuum as a singular cost, but to see the full context of tech talent acquisition and retention. So Josh says that the average cost of internal reskilling is roughly $20,000, and you can see it range from 10 to 25, but give or take, we'll use that number as a starting point, versus the cost of acquiring external talent, a mid-level developer in the 110 to 160,000 range will cost about $30,000 to acquire, whether that's external resources, your own talent systems, the teams that come together to bring this talent on, give or take about $30,000. And that individual will take somewhere between 3 and 6 months to onboard. They don't know your culture, they don't know your company, there's a lot of learning before they actually become productive, whereas somebody who is elevated internally comes with all of those things, all of that understanding that allows them to hit the ground running with their newly acquired skills. But the challenge is that when you look at external talent brought in, they are typically 2 to 3 times more likely to leave your company than somebody who is elevated from within. So that really does pile on the costs associated with external technical talent. You're looking at roughly $135,000 associated with that. A cost savings for reskilling could be as much as $115,000. If you look at this at scale, the compounded effect of these savings gives you so much more to be able to work with as a business. We've talked a lot about diversity this morning. We've talked a lot about retention. We've talked a lot about employee experience. And these are the, I would say, ancillary benefits of a great reskilling program. We have one client that has been reskilling now for 3 years and has had 100% retention from that program. What if we invest in our employees and they leave? What if we don't and they stay? Everybody knows that line. It comes out at every single conference like this, but it's absolutely true. It is a cost savings. There are wonderful opportunities to enhance D&I efforts through reskilling, pulling diversity from one part of your organization and putting it in another. Bank branches, which have been really hit hard by digitization, 85% female, 15% African American. Female participation in the field of computer programming is around 20%. A wonderful opportunity for companies to take talent from one place and put it in another place. And the last part is really around building your employer brand. Companies that engage in reskilling, companies that demonstrate their commitment to elevate talent from within, see higher quality talent coming in at the bottom of their organization. When Amazon created the Career Choice Program and initially committed $900 million to reskill warehouse workers, people thought they were absolutely insane. Why would you do that? These are temporary workers. They have attrition rates of 40+%. And the answers were, have you seen the quality of talent that we're bringing into our warehouses? And the Career Choice Program has been a wonderful brand builder for Amazon as well. So I think those are some of the other things that are really worth noting. I'd like to share a story of one of our clients, and this is AutoZone, and I'll let Michelle Bornikoff speak for herself.
I was at a conference with another CIO, and she was talking about the diversity in her tech, and her numbers were just crazy. And I was like, what are you doing? And she shared some stories about Tech Elevator and the impact that it's had on her technology organization as well as the company, and I knew it was something that we had to be a part of. AutoZone Tech Program is really an opportunity for us to take zoners that are in our stores, our distribution centers, and give them a technology background. So it's a 14-week program where they learn to code. I knew it was going to be something that would forever change our company and would forever change our tech organization. As these zoners start to work with our teams, they bring knowledge and experience in the distribution centers and stores that we can't teach because they've lived, breathed, and touched it each and every day. What I think this program is doing for our zoners is forever life-changing.
You know, I was asking for a picture with all my brothers and sisters, and I called my oldest sister, and I'm like, hey, do you have a picture? And she said, at that time, cameras were not available to us. And I'm like, wow. Look at where I'm at right now. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna be watching and they're gonna be crying, thinking, what is he doing up there now? Memphis, corporate, yeah.
The dedication and the commitment and the passion from our graduates are things that you just can't buy.
So everybody here is here because you have worked your way up. You have had impact in your careers. You have demonstrated that you are worthy of investment, and many of you in this room have risen to leadership positions. I've talked to folks in HR, and I've joked with them, and I've said, does HR stand for hates risk? Because sometimes it feels like it's hates risk. Is your job to stop the company from getting sued? Is that what you got into the business for? Of course we joke, it's all tongue in cheek, but really I know that people get into the talent business because they want to make a difference, because they truly believe in their core of core that the most valuable asset of a company is its people. And when you get that right, when you can not just engage your employees, but inspire your employees, you can directly impact business performance in a way that no other part of the business can. So in this presentation, I've tried to give you the facts. I've made the investment case, but I ask all of you, what will be your legacy in this field? What lasting impact will you create in your organization, and what example will you create for those who come behind you? There's an enormous opportunity for America's corporations to recognize the value of the talent that they have within and see that benefit, and technology reskilling is such an obvious place to play in. Each of us has the opportunity to leave the world just a little better than we found it. As leaders in HR and talent, you guys are at this critical nexus between human performance and business performance. You have power, you have influence, and with power comes responsibility, but with tech reskilling comes significant opportunity. Your employees want it, your business needs it, you can drive diversity and retention and build your employee brand with it. 99% of this room will leave, will say, oh, that was nice, and we'll get back to all the things that you amazing people have to juggle. You're the plate spinners of every single one of your organizations. But one or two people in this room may say, you know what? I'm gonna hang my hat on that. That's gonna be my legacy, And I would absolutely love to help you accomplish that. Thank you very much.